The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, that would not be the first time that someone from New Zealand First has stood up and given a speech in this House about some amazing intrigue that they've managed to uncover somewhere, some sort of double dealing, some sort of slippery activity, etc. But here we have today no questions in the House about this matter, just one of their backbenchers standing up, spraying his allegations all over the place, trying to besmirch the reputation of the New Zealand Financial Markets Authority, who actually may not have any jurisdiction in this case whatsoever. So all I'll say is this: put your evidence on the table, Mr Fletcher, let everybody see it, and if there's something in it, then clearly the law will take the appropriate course. But the real question here is, how can New Zealand First have the audacity to stand up and claim to be a friend of the farmer? The first point is, they fail to recognise that they are now the main opposition party. Labor and the Greens, with their little deal last week where they're one and the same, Greens Labor, Labor Greens, spit it out, either way it's the same thing and they're finished. New Zealand First is now the most prominent opposition party in the House, and they claim to like farmers but will not vote for, do not support the best trade deal that New Zealand could ever get for our primary product. You see, there is a party that actually believes insular New Zealand, tiny little locked door surrounded by a Donald Trump wall, would be a much nicer place to live, where everybody could be so much more prosperous if we just traded with one another. If we could take our 60 million sheep and just sort of sell them to one another over and over again, we could all be wealthy. It's the sort of protectionist rubbish that Winston Peters has been on about for years, the sort of protectionist rubbish that got us into trouble that led to the reforms of the 80s, and the sort of protectionist rubbish that New Zealand voters will continue to reject because today they're a lot smarter than your average New Zealand First backbencher. Mr Speaker, I think one of the things that really has surprised me in the last couple of days has been the complete turnaround in attitudes between over the way in which the House seating plan works here in Parliament. See, post the election, we had New Zealand First saying that they were the third biggest party in the House, and therefore they should sit on the crossbenches. That's over there where the Greens are. And the Greens, legitimately, as the second biggest opposition party, should have been where New Zealand First is now. But the Greens put their foot down and said there is no way that they wanted to sit so close to Labor because they had a memorandum of understanding with National. And therefore they had to take these seats over here. Now, of course, we've got the coming together, the holding of the hands, the big embrace, and the great race for what will be electoral oblivion for both of them. And they're not prepared to sit next to each other because not only have they entered the marriage, they've also signed the terms for the divorce on the election day. So, Mr Speaker, I want to know why New Zealand First aren't claiming their right to sit in the crossbenches as they properly should. The main party, well, it's not a good thing to break the speech to acknowledge an interjection. But Mr Prosser just says he wants to sit over here. Well, one day, Mr Prosser, when you're an old man and you come back as a tourist, they might let you sit on one of these seats. But it won't be happening by virtue of the ballot box. I can assure the member of that. Mr Speaker, I could go on about that and taunting the opposition. It's never a fair or reasonable thing. I just want to say that I'm absolutely stunned that in the House today, where we had the announcement this morning of a $20 billion plan for the future of the New Zealand Defence Force, that same party that now is obviously the most prominent opposition party had no question on the matter in the House. Most disappointing. But Mr Speaker, what is fair to say is that over the next long period of years, the New Zealand Defence Force will be able to plan properly the way in which it acquires the equipment it needs, way in which it structures its force to be able to deliver in the best interest of New Zealand's security. And Mr Speaker, the one thing that surprised me today was the Labor opposition asking the question, is it affordable? Well, sir, It's 1.1% of our GDP, which is pretty good relative to other nations. And yes, there'll be others, many people in here who want to say spend more, but it's
The
pretty
member's
good going.
time has expired.
That's a great shame.
Mr. Speaker.
Phil